Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to start a new project. We are going to build a bust out of clay. A bust is any piece of art that depicts an animal or a human from the shoulders up. We are going to build our bust fairly large, not quite life-size, and we're going to learn a new way to construct a clay sculpture. And that's by starting with a newspaper form on the interior of the sculpture that we're going to lay our clay around. That's going to allow us to build a larger sculpture while still having it be really stable in those wet stages. It's a really great process to learn and can be applied in lots of new and different ways once you get the basics down. In this first step, we're not worrying about trying to make this look like a face. We're trying to get the basic shape made. We're going to start with newspaper, then add clay, and then smooth to get the basic form of the head.
Today we're going to start our bus, and here's 3 examples of busts in the background. We're going to start by building a form. For the form, what you are going to need is a piece of scrap mat board or cardboard, a toilet paper roll, some newspaper, and some masking tape. What we're going to do is build a form that's going to sit underneath our clay and provide support and structure while we build our clay. We're going to start off by making the shoulders.
You crumple up the paper, make sure to pack it down really nice and tight.
I'm going to ball up a variety of pieces of newspaper. Some are a little bit bigger. This was a double page, this was a single page. I'm going to put the bigger pieces in the middle, and I want to compress them. I don't want this to be too loose. And then I'm going to put the smaller pieces on the outside and slightly forward. What I want to do is make a shape that looks somewhat like a croissant or a crescent roll. Once I've got the pieces formed, I'm going to rip off a few pieces of masking tape, and then I'm going to tape them down.
After I taped these down, I added some longer sections of crumpled newspaper on the top to build up the overall shape.
In the end, when you're looking at your piece from the front, it should be taller in the center and narrower on the shoulders. And if you look at it from the top, the middle of the piece should be further back and the shoulders more forward. Keep building up until you have enough height, and remember, you're going to have about 1 inch of clay over this whole thing. Your next step is to add your neck. We're going to put the neck in the middle of the piece, and it's in the middle front to back, and it's in the middle left to right. And what we do first is we kind of tape it into place there. You want to make sure that there's good newspaper support under this, that it's not going to collapse too much under the weight in the center. Have 3 or 4 pieces of tape around that piece to just hold the neck in place. Our next step is we need to add a head. For the head, we're going to ball up quite a few pieces of newspaper. We're going to basically make a sphere.
Crumple up a newspaper and then keep adding more newspaper around it. Compress it tightly. Once you've got a good-sized cranium, then you're going to add another ball below it and in front to create the chin.
And then what I'm going to start doing is I want to make my piece have like a top part of the head and then a chin in front. So it's going to be kind of a large cranium here where my hand is, and then here there's going to be a chin. So if you think like of a skeleton shape, and then there's going to be a little dip behind the chin there. I'm going to add some tape just to hold this in place.
Make sure your newspaper is compressed quite tightly. You don't want it too loose.
Here you can start to see that there's a bit of an egg shape to it. It's getting wider on the top, a little bit of a narrowness here. When I put it on my form, you can see how that chin goes up, out and over the toilet paper roll. It kind of sticks straight out from that roll, and then the cranium kind of goes in right over that space. I'm going to tape that into place, and we'll take a look at size after that. All right, at this point we've got a pretty wobbly little space, and that's okay. When we add clay, it's going to firm itself up. Let me kind of tip it from different directions so you can see how large the head is in comparison to the toilet paper roll. You can see it is not humongous. We don't want it to make the full size of the head. If we do that when we add clay, we aren't going to have enough clay to mold and form. You can see that it's a little bit loose on the base, but our next step is to go in and add clay to this piece. So I've pre-wedged a bunch of clay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off sections of it that are about 1 inch thick, and I'm going to start at the bottom of my piece, and I'm going to start laying clay over my newspaper form. As you lay that clay down, you're going to compress the form underneath, and right now we're just trying to get it covered. We're not worrying about anything being smooth or perfect.
Really push that clay down and into the form, blend between pieces, but keep it nice and loose at this point. We're just trying to build up a basic structure.
When I get up around the neck, I'm going to have that clay kind of come up and form a ring around the neck, which will give it a little bit more support. And again, I just keep building up from the bottom to the top. Do not start at the top and build down, you'll collapse your whole sculpture. Once I've covered the shoulders with clay, I'm going to push down just to compress the newspaper underneath. I want to make sure this is nice and tight. I'm still not worrying about making this piece perfect. I just want to get it covered with clay. For the neck, I take my piece about 1 inch thick again. I'm just going to wrap it around the neck, nice and tight underneath the head. For the head, and this is the tricky part, you got to build from the neck up, and it's going to want to fall off of your form, and that's okay. In the end, you'll get it back up around it. So work kind of quickly, about 1 inch thick, and I'm going to tell you, your head will not look like a head in the beginning. You'll look like a poorly made tree or a lollipop. You just want to get that clay on there about 1 inch thick, and again, compressing that clay as you go.
The quicker you go, the easier this step is. Don't overthink it. Remember, about 1 inch everywhere, compress as you go, and make sure you really compact it down. Once you've got it covered with clay, now you're going to go in and start to smooth things out. And in the process of smoothing things out, you're going to start to shape your piece. I like to use both hands at once, especially with something symmetrical like a face. Using both hands at once just helps you to make sure you're feeling the same symmetry on each side as you're looking at the structure. Continue to smooth out the piece until you've got a fairly lump-free piece in front of you. Your next step then is going to start to shape your piece. You want to think about this as like a mannequin head, one of those heads that doesn't have any features. As you look at the front of the face, you want the sides to come down fairly straight, angled in a little bit, and then the jaw to come in at a 45-degree angle, and the bottom of the chin to be a bit flat. Make sure that chin goes straight back into the neck as well. The front of the face has a little bit of roundness, as does the top. When you look at it from the side, here you can see that chin going straight back into the neck, and on the back you can see some roundness there. It's a little flatter than it should be. If you feel the back of your head, you can feel there's kind of a lump on the back of your upper cranium. So I'm adding a little bit of clay here, and feel free to do this as you're working on your piece. You might have to add clay in pieces and take clay off in other parts. You want that cranium to come out, and then a nice curve into the back of the neck, and then the shoulders to curve back out. When you add clay, just make sure you take some time to really blend that in, smooth it out. Notice how the cranium, that top part of the head, is about halfway up the total front part of the head. It's higher up. When you look at the back of the head, you're looking for a roundness at the top that blends and smooths into the neck. And then when you look at the side, check out the angle of the jaw coming back into the cranium where the ear would be. Once you get the basic shape down, you're ready for the next step, which is prepping the face for facial features. You're going to mark a line down the center of the head in one direction and down the center of the head in the opposite. So you make a big plus on your piece. Where those lines are the eye sockets. Take your thumbs and push them in. Make sure you blend those eye sockets back around the head. I know this feels a little creepy right now. Notice how those eye sockets go straight back in. You don't want them to go straight back in. You want to have a nice slope going into the eye socket and a nice slope coming out of the eye socket. So take some time to kind of round out those depressions, make it a little bit more smooth. And it is important that those eye sockets bend around the edge of the face. Make sure it's not just a hole right in the middle. Have that come down into the temple area. Take some time to even that up. Make sure that your shape is looking good. And our next step will be to add facial features.